So my name's Keith Hayes. Whoever wrote what I was doing today, I need to talk to them because I want to hire them to my publicist. It made what I do look a whole lot more glamorous than I certainly perceive to be. In fact, I would analogize what my team does running Charter's network as the World War II bomber pilots, whose job was categorized as its hours of boredom punctuated with seconds of sheer terror. Because that's a lot of what goes on. What we do is the network's running well. We don't have a lot to do other than, do right maintenance and support and patient planning. But when something goes awry, we have to respond quickly to make it, get back on track as quickly as possible. Charter's run, you just heard that we've got charter business and we've got charter residential, if you will. It's one big company, but it's one network. And my team watches the whole, whether it's you as an individual customer at your house, or it's a commercial business that's got a 10 gigabit Ethernet circuit from us. We serve everybody from a single house to a big hospital all across the country with 17,000 almost employees and another 5,000 or 6,000 contract departments. So we've got a lot of folks all over the place. So let me give you a look at what we're going to talk about today. First of all, I'm going to give you just a 5-minute overview of what Charter is, where we're located, and what our services are. Because if you're not one of our customers, you may not know some of the things we do. And then we're going to go into network operations challenges. So it's not broken down in flora, fauna, Homo sapiens, which are usually the most problematic, and then Mother Nature, and finally Murphy, as in Murphy's Law. And then at the end of it, we've got a lot of great horror stories. By the way, when I reached out to our field and said, I've got to speak at this event, we need to talk about network challenges. Send me your weird events, your horror stories, preferably with pictures. And you're going to see a lot of these. You're going to see a lot of them. There's a lot more you won't see because they're not appropriate for certain genteel audiences like this. By the way, I'm from Atlanta. I think that's why they brought me here, because I don't have a translator to talk Southern here. So, and then we'll take questions, if you have them at the end. So, what is Charter? Where are we? You just heard we're the 4th largest cable telecommunications operator. We are in 25 states. You can see the clusters of our network. The cities that we're in. St. Louis, we've got pretty much all that market. We've got all this market, the 2,000 area, Greenville, Spartanburg. We've got all of Reno. We've got part of Los Angeles, part of the Dallas area. And most of our other areas, our contractors call us the cable operator who has networks in cities you cannot fly to. We operate in smaller cities primarily. LaGrange, Georgia, Kennewick, Washington, Worcester, Massachusetts. So where are we here? In this Greenville, Spartanburg area. You can see we've got Greenburg, Spartanville, and Anderson. Anderson, Greenville, Spartanburg, pretty much covered. You go north, and we're up in Hickory and Asheville, North Carolina. You go west, we're in several areas around the metro Atlanta area. In Georgia, we have many of the smaller cities in the middle of Tennessee in the southeast. And this light blue, that is the boundaries of our residential franchise areas, where we've got a franchise with a city or a county to provide residential services. The dark blue, these are our fiber optic arteries that provide services, to either residential or commercial or both. And you'll see in some cases these connect areas that we're not directly serving. We can get a fiber into, if you happen to have a business or there's a new, commercial development going in, we can often get fiber extended out there, even though it's not necessarily within our franchise area. So one of the things that makes the cable operators able to deliver great services on the data front and do it very cost effectively is building and operating a national backbone. This is Charter's national backbone. You can see we've got presence in, like Ashburn is one of the big internet pop sites up in the Washington, D.C. area. And what this does is lets us terminate data traffic into an internet drain very quickly because we're not having to route through a bunch of different hops. All these links are 10 gigabits at least. Some of them are way over that. We're approaching 100 in certain areas, and we're looking at turning up our first 100 gig dedicated wave as traffic demands growing. This also lets us do what's called peering. So we can peer with what was the Farmville app, we can peer with Facebook, we can peer with Hulu, we can peer with Netflix, with Google, with Microsoft, you know, anybody that's got a lot of traffic, we can peer with, and that keeps your costs down. Because peering is essentially, there's no cost for terminating that traffic. We're not having to pay them to take bits, they're not having to pay us to take bits. It's basically a swap off. So how does a cable network work? You know, if you're a satellite customer or a phone customer or maybe you're a cable customer, you never really thought about how it works. How does that TV signal or that telephone call or that packet of data get from our facilities through various streets and highways to your house? So the cable network starts with what we call a head end, the head end of the cable network. This is where satellite dishes are to receive signals from various satellite programmers. This is where we get our internet core traffic tied into the backbone. This is where we put telephone switches. This is where video on demand servers are. This is, you know, kind of the brains of the centralized part of the network. Leaving that head end, you'll go to what's called a fiber optic hub. So we have fiber cables going from the head end to a hub site. A hub site will serve an area of homes from 10,000 to 50,000, somewhere in that ballpark. From that hub site, we've got what we call a fiber ring. So the fiber leaving the head end, the fiber going to the hub sites, it's ringed. So you've got signals going around the ring in one direction, clockwise. You've got another set of signals going around in the other direction, counterclockwise. So if we take a cut to the ring right here, if this hub was getting its signals normally from the head in this direction, it would then get its signals in this direction. And it happens in a matter of milliseconds, so there's no loss of service. We've got error correction that takes care of any drop packets that might happen during that very brief switchover. Leaving the hub site, we have fiber optic cables that go out. We've actually got a term that's used twice. We've got a fiber node. The node is an electronic box, I'll show you a picture of one in a minute, that converts optical signals on our fiber network to electrical signals that go to the coaxial network. Our network's called an HFC network, hybrid fiber coax, because we use fiber and coax together. This node then, the second definition of a node is a geographic area served by a fiber node. So that will typically be about 500 households passed. So it's a small subdivision, maybe a couple subdivisions, might be some mom and pop businesses in between there. And it's really limited to, we tie how many amplifiers we have in Cascade, tied into maybe municipal boundaries or geographic boundaries like the lake or river or something like that. And then it goes through a series of amplifiers and splitting devices called tamps or directional couplers. A tamp is what's in front of your house, either on a pole or on a pedestal, that your block connects to, that then carries the signals into your house. So let's talk about some of the stats of Charter, because this is supposed to be based on a large network, right? So we consider our network large. We're the fourth largest. We're about 1/5 the size of the largest in the country, which is Comcast. So we pass about 12 million homes. We've got 200,000 or so miles of coax cable and another 55,000 of fiber. We've got about 5,500 commercial buildings that are what we call lit. They got optical services in them for one or more customers. We've got 29,000 of those geographic nodes we talked about. We've got about 1.2 million electronic devices in our outside plant. These are nodes, amplifiers, and power supplies. What's a power supply? So all these amplifiers, you see amplifier and cable line running down the street or in a pedestal, they got to have power. So what we do is we deploy a power supply that takes power from the lady in the back that's running utilities. We buy power from you or somebody like you. We convert it into a special form that works better for our amplifiers, and we put batteries in that power supply. So I'm sure she never has outages with her utility, but other utilities aren't quite diligent. When they have outages, we can run on batteries for several hours, and if the batteries start getting depleted and the outage is not on, we'll dispatch a tech with a generator to keep the power supply on so we don't have an outage. We have 150 of those head-end communication centers that we call masters. Masters means they got something significant. They're serving 50,000, 100,000, 150,000 customers. They've got a telephone switch in them. They've got a video on demand back office in them. And then we've got 700 other telecom facilities, hub sites, both primary and secondary, and then OTNs. I should put an acronym definition on here. That's an optical transition node. Basically, that lets us put a hub site out in the outside plant, in a hardened enclosure with battery backup and all that stuff. We don't have to actually go build a building for it. These are usually used out in the extremities where we're only serving maybe 5,000 customers, and it's we don't need the capacity of having to build a full hub site building. So here's what you might see in the head end. It's a bunch of racks of equipment. Most of our head ends are 20 to 30,000 square feet. They've got multiple UPSs to provide backup power and air conditioning, generators, and all that fun stuff. So this is one of the power supplies that you either see in a pedestal or up on the pole. And this top part is actually the power supply itself that takes power from the commercial power operator, converts it into a special form, and also provides the charging for the batteries. This particular one has 6 batteries down below it. They look like car batteries, but they're actually far different. They've got a different makeup of lead and acid in them, so because they're designed to run at very low power levels for very long periods of time. And we also got, this also does the inverting. So the power supply goes into standby. It takes the DC power from the batteries and converts it into AC power and sends it into the outside plant. So this is what the first definition of a node looks like. It converts the optical to the electrical signals. And a node is about 24 inches long, 10 inches high, 10 inches deep. And several modules inside that can be modified or swapped out depending on what the needs of the network are. This last device is a smaller amplifier. It's called a line extender. It's about the size of a big novel. I think a Harry Potter novel, something like that. And we've got 500,000 or more of those in our outside plant. So at the end of the day, our network is more than long enough to go from the Earth to the Moon in just the outside plant piece of it. You add in the drop network, and we'd probably be able to go to Saturn or more beyond there. So let's get into some of our customers. We got 5,200,000 what we call customer relationships. We touch 5,200,000 homes for one or more services. We've got about 5 million set tops, 3.5 million modems. We serve over 1.5 million customers with telephone. It might be through a modem or through another device we call an NTA. We process 600 million phone calls per month. I mean, just mind-boggling. We deliver 10 million video on demand streams a week on average. Some weeks can be way more if we have popular content on it. We serve over 10,000 commercial business fiber optic connections. And here's one of our big challenges. Our data grows at 70% a year. When you think about it, if you had to add on to your house, you got a 2,000 square foot house, if you had to add on 1,300 more square feet every year, and every year it keeps growing. That's what's happening is, all the smartphones and, farm bills and other things start driving needs for network use. So what happens on our B2B network? What are these 10 million streams? Well, I'm going to look back at last week for some of the things that, everybody's thinking about Batman and the Avengers and Hulk and all the big guys. But one of the beauties of VOD is you can watch things that, most people don't want. Now, maybe the Tramp, that's people like that. It's not readily available, but if you want to entertain your kids for a couple hours or something, if you watched this kid 20 years ago, we've got that option. If you're a opera or Broadway junkie, you can watch Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera delivered at a London venue, or the premium favorite, Will They Serve Beer in Hell? I've not personally seen this movie, but it shows up on our VOD list every week, so it must be good. I hear it's kind of a combination of The Hangover and The Bachelor and I don't know what else. So anyway, let's get into some of the fun stuff. What are our network challenges? So flora, which is defined as something that grows from the ground with roots. Sometimes those roots don't work so well, and the things fall down on our network and break it. Which means we have to go get the chainsaws out, we have to replace the poles, we have to pull in new cables, splice new fiber. Now we expect to get that during storms, but this particular one, this tree just decided it didn't want to live anymore, and it fell over. One wind, one storm, and as you can see, it's pretty big. So you don't go cut this up with a standard chainsaw you might find at your local Ace Hardware. Favorite in the South, kazoo. you leave a slow-moving child or husband or car around, because people look at it because it can grow at up to a foot a day. And when it grows up poles like this, it can get up in the tower and short out power down to the ground, which burns up the kudzu, but also could start a fire or could cause a power outage, or could, maybe dump the transformer that might can damage our facilities down below. But we've already heard, somebody used the term squirrel. Nobody knows what squirrels are in the cable telecommunications space. They are called tree rats, because these things are just a bane on the network. And you might think they look cute. Well, they are cute from a distance until their teeth start growing and they have to sharpen them somewhere. And their favorite place apparently to sharpen them is on cable, whether they don't care whether it's coax or fiber. They are indiscriminate teeth sharpeners on any of our facilities. And you can see this little guy up here getting ready to chow down. So what's it look like when a squirrel gets hold, a tree rat gets hold of some of our facilities? So here's a piece of fiber optic cable. The top one is a little bit further off and more of a close-up. They strip the outer shielding, which is a high-density polyethylene. Then it's got a aluminum foil shield on it, and then all the fiber optic cables are inside it, either wrapped in a couple of different types of plastic with Kevlar strength cables. These squirrels are so persistent that they will even chew up Kevlar. That's what goes in bulletproof vests. Doesn't bother the squirrels; they'll go right through it. Here's another close-up of fiber optic cable after squirrels have had it. So what do we do to protect that? So there's two things. One is in areas where we've got a high population of hungry squirrels, we'll spend a lot of extra money and put in armor in our cables. So there'll be a steel shield around the fiber optics that is tough enough that it'll protect it from squirrel chewing. We've not personally tested this at Charter, but there is a cable manufacturer. I saw their office right down the road, so you probably know who they are. That they've experimented with putting a substance in that apparently smells a lot like wolf urine to the squirrels, and therefore keeps them hopefully away from the cable. I waited until I buzzed down lunch before I shared that. So this is what we, at the end of the day, want to do with squirrels. We go on hunting missions. And in our mind, they are every bit as big and dangerous as it appears to be in this picture. But it's not just squirrels. Foxes can end up in places they shouldn't be. This is in one of our lock boxes in a multi-unit development. We have problems with boxes, with woodchucks, with deer. Pretty much anything that's on hooves will, or feet or something, will bother us in some way. Maybe carry them out out there just seeking shelter like this guy probably was. Some of the other ones, they sharpen horns, they sharpen teeth, they dig, things that bother us. Insects. So I started my job 30 years ago as a installer. And one of the first things I learned the hard way when I came back in from doing an install and got stung 6 or 8 times, my boss looked at me and said, "Why'd you get stung?" I said, "Well, open up the pedestal and there was a wasp nest in there." He said, "Well, why didn't you kick the pedestal and run away and see if anything came out of it before you opened it up?" I said, "Probably because my boss didn't tell me to go do that." So, we learned the hard way. He chuckled about it, so everybody learns that. But you'd be surprised what will end up in pedestals. You'll see some other pictures of some ants that get in them, but black widow spiders are banned in the southeast building nests in pedestals. We see, various types of, yellow jackets, wasps, hornets that will build in there. One of the problems we have in some of our inner cities is a table will open up the pedestal and there'll be a bag of drugs in there. Our instructions to them in that case are leave and call the police because we don't want them to be in the middle of some kind of drug deal gone bad. So we have other entities like snakes that like our facilities. They like heat. And they're not picky. They don't care whether it's a tap that's the housing of the line extender. So that's another one you got to be careful and look when you open up a lockbox or pedestal, what's in there. Ants. They like to build nests because it's protected from the weather. Often there's heat given off in there. I'm sure you utilities people see that on your transformers. I fight a battle with ants on my transformer trying to keep them away from it. And they will lay eggs. They set up a whole colony, and they'll start chewing on the this is actually fiber cable that's circled around here. They'll chew on the fiber and in some cases damage it. This is not actually a charter network. This has been verified by Snopes.com as being real. Nobody photoshopped this. This is a deer that apparently got hit by a fast-moving train and thrown up on a power line out in the west. I believe it's in Wyoming. And apparently said that it caused an outage because you shorted out the power line and had to come get the thing down with the bucket trucks. But that was too good a picture not to put up here, particularly since there are deer all over the place here. So I ripped this picture off from somebody. We've heard about all of you folks that are in IT. So this is how humanity has evolved from an 8 to an IT 8. We're not necessarily sure it's evolution. We went through the jackhammer phase about 4 years ago. But what do humans do to us? So this one looks like maybe a tornado or a hurricane. This is actually a human-induced problem that happened to us in Texas a few months ago. So we've got facilities that cross a railroad depot. Trains come in, they pick up new cars, they maybe drop off some cars, and they move on. Well, we've got very strict requirements to have our cable at certain heights. I think it's 30 feet above any of the train crossings. Well, somebody at this train yard had the right idea of, I need to move all these cargo containers from one side of the yard to the other. And they're not everybody outside of the train yard, so I'll just stack them up. So the 30 feet will get you plenty of clearance for a normal stacking of 2 containers. It won't get you enough clearance for 4 containers. So this train comes driven through, and it not only knocks us down, it knocks down I don't remember if it was AT&T, some phone company, and a tower feed. This thing was, like 50 feet high, going through the train yard. And, we had a couple of different fiber optic cables going through there, and it was hours for us to, wait for the power company to get their stuff restored, and then, us come in with our fiber optic splice trailer to fix it. Hunting season. Oh my goodness. And this is worse in the southeast because we have more hunters down here than we do in other areas. So I just did a Google search a couple of days ago on cable gunshot damage. And I got something like 15 million results on it. Here's the first fire alarm. And you'll see they're all over the place, from Chico in California to the Midwest. These happen to us all the time. And it's not just hunting season. This is the southeast. We've got Billy, Bob, and Bubba that want to show their shooting prowess after 4 or 5 cups of coffee over here on the front porch. So here's these are charter stories I'm going to share with you. Man was building a fire to burn some trash, and instead of doing it out in the middle of the field, he built it underneath the pole line. So the fire got hot enough, it caught the pole on fire and melted everything on it except our steel strand. That's the string that holds stuff up. People shooting birds off the coax with a .22, and they miss and they hit the cable, which is this big instead of the bird that's this big. Maybe they said they shot it. But the birds are eating their blueberries, so it's important that they keep the birds away from their blueberries. Shooting skeet over a cornfield, and they shot our fiber with the buckshot instead of hitting the skeet pellet. Mad ex-customer shooting our trunk amp with a high-powered rifle because he was mad that we cut him off for non-payment. So, we pursued him through the legal challenges, and I'm so mad. I went to one of these sessions. It's actually a women in cable technology session several years ago, and I had this whole big box of great examples of things that happen to our network, squirrel damage and lightning strikes and all that kind of stuff. And I had this great piece of cable that somebody had shot with an arrow. And one of the women there said, I got to take this back and show my office, and I've never seen it again. But this is actually one from the 50s that you see a raw head arrow went straight through a piece of a coax cable. Probably on accident, because unless you're way better bow marksman than I am, you'd never be able to hit a cable that's 3/4 of an inch in diameter. This guy claims that he fell asleep. This is one of our hub sites. This is actually in the St. Louis area. Our local engineer got woke up by the police at 2 in the morning and said, you got a car in hub site. And he said, what? Am I dreaming? No, you got a car in hub site, and we're about to cut power off because we're deeming it a safety hazard. The engineer replied, you need to go get a court order because we have 911 services and other life-impacting telecommunications going through that building. You will not cut it off we'll work to secure it in some other manner. They ended up working out with us. Thank goodness the guy wasn't hurt. And this, none of the pictures I'm going to show you resulted in any serious injuries. So please bear that in mind. This did, well, that's true. Human injuries. So this happened one state north in Tennessee. This was last year. They had one of the infrequent snowstorms that happened in Tennessee. We had an outage. Technician in the bucket truck was up working on the outage. A Tennessee snowplow operator was pushing snow off the road and was visually impaired because of fog in the windshield or something. He didn't see this, 10, 12,000 pound bucket truck on the side of the road, and he hit it at over 60 miles an hour. Pushed it way off in the field, and you see the bucket's not there anymore. The bucket's right here. So what happened to our guy that was up there? Well, fortunately, he was not seriously injured. They wear what we call a safety lanyard that's connected to a D-ring up the top. But the poor guy was hanging there for 15 minutes until the fire truck could get out there and get a ladder up there to get him down. So the guy was seriously injured, and the snowplow operator, I'm sure, got some career-limiting injuries in his work log. Now, I'm not to the Murphy part yet. Murphy's definitely involved here because it's very same tech. You're sitting at a traffic light about 6 months later, and a dump truck ran into his truck and pushed him into the car in front of him. And she just completely crumpled the truck. Guy again was, I don't think the airbags even went off on him because he wasn't thrown forward too much. He just came out of this with bumps and bruises. Nobody wants to ride this guy anymore. We can't figure out why. This is not charter. I don't know how this happened, but if you go look for, just go to Humor Me. Go home and do an internet search tonight for cars on poles. You will be amazed how many people somehow find a way to drive their car up a pole, including police officers. There's a great one of a police officer in Southern Florida that went vertical with his car. This apparently hit something in the right front wheel. The top line is phone, and then you've got two cable lines, following the cable line here. So now we move on to the Murphy's part. Let's all remember, Murphy's Law number one is anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and Murphy was an optimist. So this poor guy goes up this pole ladder to do a standard, service call. Go connect the drop. Well, turns out this pole was rotten at the base of it. He had done the thumping that you're supposed to do and prodded it with a screwdriver to look for external signs of deterioration. He didn't see any, but he gets up on that pole and he leans over. He wasn't hurt, but it took us a little while longer to get this customer's installation done because we had to get whoever owned the pole out to replace it. Next, this is not our tower. This is one of our hub sites. Our tower is not in this picture, but there was no wind, there was no storm, there was no nothing happening. There was another tower that we had leased space for somebody else to put their facilities on. They had a couple of racks inside our building, and this tower just decided to fall down. There was no apparent metal deterioration on this. After they had analyzed it, they found that there was some they had steel in the bottom of it that had been covered up by paint or something. Wasn't evident, but it fell down and took down some of our facilities at the same time. So even though we're doing all the right things, something negative can happen to us. Mother Nature. So here's one you probably hadn't thought about, because all you guys are hardworking people and you're never home in the afternoon during what we call the solar transient periods. So twice a year. Doesn't matter if you've got a 2-foot DirecTV dish or a 40-foot high capacity satellite receive dish. Twice a year, the Earth, where the dish is, the satellite, and the sun all get in line. And guess what? The sun's got just a little bit more power than the satellite. So for a few minutes, for a few days, it's like 10 minutes over a 4 or 5 day period, it'll wipe out the satellite signals. There's no physical way around it. I'll give you what we do to prevent it, but if you've got a dish on the ground that's going to get impaired by the sun outages that happen in the spring and fall. So of course, we love ice storms in the southeast. And ice storms are known as, employment protocols for cable technicians, because we know we're going to get one every 3 or 4 years. And you'll see when the ice storms forecast, cable contractors come, they drive from 500 miles away, knowing that there's going to be great work in when this ice builds up on both the trees and the power poles and cable lines, and will cause something to break, whether it's a tree that falls on the cable line or the power line itself breaks from the ice load on it. This was in the Alabama area, the Tuscaloosa area, that got hit last year. One of our families of one of our techs was able to get this picture of this tornado that's about to come down this pole line. And it just completely wiped out, more than a mile of pole line plus all the houses that were on either side of it. So what do we do? Now, these are just a few of the things that we face, and it's not just us. All the power companies face them. We euphemistically joke about backhoe damage, backhoe fade, people digging in their yards. You hear the 811 or 611 call before you dig, advertisements all the time. How do we overcome these things and keep your TV operating or your high-capacity data services on? Well, there's really 4 fundamental things we do that protect our network. First is, wherever possible, from either a technology or an economic perspective, we build redundancy in. So I just talked to you about the solar transit outages. In the last 18 months, Charter has turned up what we call super head ends. We've got one in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We've got one in Sugarville, Georgia. Most of our major satellite delivered programming feeds come from those 2 head ends, and they're on those counterclockwise, clockwise, redundant rings. So when we have a solar transit outage now, if you're picking your signals up normally from the Sugarville head end here in Greenville, solar transit outage happens, it'll automatically flip over to the Eau Claire facility. It's far enough away from that solar impact. If you're more than like 400 miles away, you won't be impacted at the same time. So we purposely did that so we could protect ourselves from the solar transit outages. Redundancy also allows us to protect our network from shotgun blasts, from digging, from lightning strikes, from all kinds of other things. The next is hardening. And I talked about, in some cases, what we do to our cable to harden it to protect it from squirrel shoes. Hardening can also be, putting bollards around your building so a sleepy car driver doesn't run into the side of your building, or building your building walls robustly enough. By the way, that car that was in our building didn't cause an outage because we build most of our buildings with a protective shell around it, so we'll put non-mission critical stuff on the outside shell, and then we have an interior compartment that's got all those racks and the power gear and whatnot. So, records are stored in the outside shell. Our offices are in the outside shell, so there's room if somebody shoots it or drives a car into it, it protects the critical gear inside. Maintenance. We spend a lot of our time on maintaining all our facilities, whether it's a gigabit router in our core or it's a light extender in an outside plant. We've got all kinds of telemetry. I showed you all the set-top boxes and modems and phone units we've got. They all give us data back, which is the next area, surveillance. We get about 1 million alarms a month into our network operations centers from our intelligent network devices. And almost all those alarms are ones that point out that we need to do maintenance. That we've got capacity. A gigabit link is up to the 60% level. We need to add capacity. We're to the point that a DoD service group doesn't have enough capacity to do more than 2 or 3 other streams at a time. So it's, if everybody wanted to watch some popular movie on Friday night, we might run out of capacity. So we add more links in so that we can support that demand. So by doing all those things robustly and religiously, we're able to continually improve the performance of our network. So one of the things that's been amazing, I've been with Charter almost 6 years. We've added something like 400,000 unique relationships, customers buying one type of service. But our trouble calls have gone down. Our outages have gone down because even though our network's bigger, we're working on making it more robust so our services stay up more. So when I talk to Bill, he asked me, how do you sleep at night with all this stuff going on? Well, I'm a technologist, so there's always an answer in technology, in this case, chemistry. Now, does anybody know what this chemical compound is?
That's right.
No one guess? How about this one? Okay, the first one's easy. That's ethanol, which is the major component in what goes in those coffee cups. This other one is a more advanced technology known as a sleep aid. In this particular case, it's Ambient. But seriously, I don't lose any sleep over our network. We've got a great team running it. We've got great support systems watching it, and a very well-maintained environment that when something breaks, we got the right response to it. And it's only a very rare case that I might be woken up at night because we've got the 7x24 operation and nothing run. So, any quick questions? Bill's give me the 5-minute sign about a minute or two ago. Well, good. Oh, we got one in the back. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Carter, on its core internet, are they thinking about, or what is the status of deploying IPv6 to its customers?
Okay, so IPv6 is something that we're all going to have to migrate to in the next couple of years. And the reason we're going to have to do that is there's something like 4.3 billion addresses that IPv4, which is the current addressing protocol, supports. IPv6 lets every grain of sand on the surface of the earth have something like 20 addresses of its own. So it's 2 to the 128 power addresses. So we did a trial last June on IPv6 Day. We stood up a part of our network that was IPv6 capable. If one of our customers was IPv6 capable, they could terminate IPv6 traffic to it. We are very robustly working down that path. We partner with Cable Labs, with the Internet Engineering Task Force, and we will be transitioning to support IPv6 over the next couple of years. It's likely that we will continue to support IPv4 at the endpoints because a lot of the modems and routers and other things that are in customers' homes don't support IPv6, so we'll do what's called a dual stack environment where we support both v4 and v6 at the same time. Any other questions? Yes?
So you mentioned that you got a lot of fiber build out, and so right now for residential and consumer, I think the highest plan is 100 meg internet downstream. At what point will you have enough fiber to be able to bump that up into the 2-3 gig?
Okay, so right now there are silicon chips that will allow us to do in excess of a gigabit through our coax network to an individual customer. We haven't deployed them yet, but it's in the lab, it's being tested, so some of the other operators, and Comcast has already announced that they're in some areas going to up to 300 meg over coax, so we have a migration plan. We can, the HFC network has over 5 gigabits of potential capacity on it with today's technology, and future technology would likely drive that higher if it's ever needed. One more question, if any, before we wrap up. Yes, sir. Very back.
I don't know if you're the one to ask about this, but where do you see your competition like Verizon coming in with wireless and eating away at your business?
So I heard competition with Verizon Wireless. I've missed a couple of words. What was the last 2 or 3 words?
Do you see any possibility of wireless technologies eating into wired business?
I really don't. I think they're complementary as opposed to competitive. And we continue to talk with many of the wireless operators to figure out if there's a right solution to do like Comcast and Verizon are doing now to co-market each other's services. The wireless operators need us, desperately because they can't continue growing the capacity to support all these services without a bunch of cell backhaul and ability to offload, traffic onto a customer's router at home instead of through their cellular network. So they're very open to work with us about how we can offload traffic into our network when the customer's at home, and then they use the wireless network when they're out on the road. There's one other question, sir, in the laser. Yes, sir.
I was curious of where exactly your location is on the international date line.
That's a closely guarded company. Thanks a lot. Appreciate your interest. Thanks a lot.